Hello, and welcome to the Empowerography Podcast. This is a platform created for women's voices to be heard and a place to share their stories, journeys, and successes with the world for the purpose of helping other women who might be on similar journeys. We are empowering women one episode at a time. I'm your host, Brad Walsh, so kick back, grab one of your favorite beverages, and enjoy the stories. If you're looking for jewelry that makes an impact on your self-care routine and your style, Empowerography would love to offer you a discount code to one of our exclusive partners, Quartz & Canary Jewelry and Wellness Company. Please use code EMPOWER15 to receive 15% off upon checkout at www.quartzandcanary.com. Quartz & Canary is truly the place where spirituality meets style. Hello there, Brad Walsh here, your host of the Empowerography Podcast. Today, my guest is Kaylie Rodriguez. She is a registered psychologist based out of Calgary, Alberta. How are you doing today, Kaylie?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for agreeing to be part of the Empowerography community and taking the time out to share a bit about your story and your journey with us here today. I appreciate that.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I appreciate the invitation.
So let's jump right in. You are a registered psychologist who runs and operates your own practice. How long have you owned and operated your own practice now, Kaylie?
I've been in private practice for just over 7 years now. Coming up on 7.5 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What motivated or inspired you to get into psychology and pursue a career in that field and open your own practice?
I think what motivated me into getting into psychology in general, I've always found myself as the listener. A lot of my friends would gravitate towards me and just share and open up. So it just seemed fitting to pursue a career in that area. And of course, I like helping people. And in high school, I took a few psychology courses that were offered and really enjoyed them and got into my undergrad and took a bunch of different classes in the social science realm. But yeah, I'm one of those rare people that knew kind of around 15, 16 what I wanted, and it never wavered, which surprises me because that doesn't often happen. But it's been a pull of mine for sure, from a young age.
Amazing. What's the name of your practice, Kaylie?
So the name of my practice is YYC Psychology.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I read that your area of specialty is addiction and mental health. What's the reason behind focusing your practice in this particular area?
When I first graduated and started working in the counseling profession, so going through my supervisory hours, I started off my career in an EAP, an employee assistance program, and found myself doing some general counseling there and got into addiction-specific work very early on. And a lot of the work in that area in an EAP program was, at that time anyways, individuals who had maybe tested positive at work, maybe there was an accident or something like that, or they came forward with an issue. So oftentimes the people that I was working with, especially if they had tested positive after an accident at work, they weren't very happy to see me. They were kind of seeing me as a means to keep their job. And right. I mean, that's a general overall sort of view of it. So it was very fascinating being, in my career at a young age, dealing with confrontational people. But I came to really appreciate when somebody would really dig into recovery and exploring what that meant from them from an addiction standpoint. It was absolutely beautiful and amazing, the growth, the transformation, the life changes and experiences that people would experience. So I found that really inspiring, and in turn I did more training and certification in the addiction field. And of course within that there's a whole umbrella of mental health presentations and whatnot underneath that. So I find within addiction there's often a lot of diagnoses that are associated, like somebody might be depressed or anxious or bipolar or, ADD. There's a lot of common diagnoses that are present with addiction, but the interesting part is when that addiction is treated and somebody is in holistic recovery, a lot of those symptoms of those mental health issues are no longer there. So what that sort of makes me believe is that a lot of these symptoms are symptoms of addiction on that umbrella term. So my expertise over the years, I was working for other organizations for 7 years prior to getting into my own practice 7 years ago. So I've been in the field about 14, 15 years now. And it's just really evolved and grown from there.
How was that for you, though, dealing with people that were you knew they were just there because they had to be and they were angry and lashing out at you? How was that to deal with for you starting out in your career in this field? I mean, that must have been tough. I would think you have to have an incredibly thick skin.
Mm-hmm. It was definitely intimidating. I remember one individual, this is, I'm trying to think how old I was. I think I graduated for my master's. I really plowed through it. I was about 23 when I graduated. So here I am, as a provisional psychologist at the time, working with some of this big burly man is who comes to my mind in one of the trades, and he was questioning me on how much I drank and how much pot I smoke and that sort of idea. And what do I know from a textbook? So as far as that confrontation, I laugh at it now because it really allowed me to really, I guess, just be cognizant of my nonverbals, to not really show any intimidation and that sort of thing on the outside. Previous to working as a provisional psychologist at the time, I used to be a youth counselor throughout my undergrad and master educational pursuit. And in that youth counseling, there was a lot of behavioral issues in that environment. And there would be individuals that would try and attack you, for lack of a better expression. So if you showed intimidation and fear, you put a target on your back. So I had found that the skills and the experiences from that youth counseling profession really segued well into that environment early on in my career. I think, though, a valuable lesson for me was to be mindful of processing my feelings in those situations after the fact. So although in that moment you might push it aside, it's important to always debrief and check in your feelings afterwards.
So Kaylie, you're also a basic ART or ART certified psychologist. Can you tell us what that is and what this means?
Mm-hmm. So Basic ART Certified is what that stands for is Accelerated Resolution Therapy. Okay. So this was actually a training that I did kind of early this summer. And what appealed to me from an art therapy standpoint is the diversity of how this form of therapy can be applied. So it's a great complement to my practice. And what Accelerated Resolution Therapy does is it works with eye movements, and it takes a look at how memories are mapped and stored in the brain. So, for example, in the context of trauma, if you have a fear and an experience in your past that has reinforced that fear, if I use spiders as the example, what art therapy does is it will take that memory and it will remap how it's stored in the brain. It will kind of erase and replace any negative imagery, sensations, feelings that are connected to that and replace it with positive. So it's really fascinating to see how clients can move through that therapeutic process. It's accelerated, hence the name.
Yeah.
They will feel benefit just after one session. So
wow, that's very cool.
Yeah, it's very beautiful, and I find it actually quite emotional for myself as an observer as I watch an individual as they're in the eye movements and visualizing the scene is the language I use. Mm-hmm. I can see them go from a highly anxious state to all of a sudden like peace and calm, and maybe a smile creeps across their face or even laughter at times, or even tears of joy. And I find it for myself watching very emotionally provoking for myself because it's just such a beautiful process. So it's used, like I said, for so many different, presenting issues. I've used it for grief. I've used it for, people who have experienced an assault or abuse, performance issues, self-esteem, relationship, bullying. Like it's such a beautiful, technique that you can use for so many different issues.
Amazing.
The other part that's really neat about it is that a person only needs to visualize the scene in their mind. They don't need to express every detail. So a lot of trauma-based therapy, people have to describe, or it's really encouraged for them to describe the details of what's happened and what their experience is. And that can be very traumatic for somebody. So for this form of therapy, the expression is you need to show your brain the problem.
Right.
The client only shares what they want to share. So the slogan behind art therapy is you keep the knowledge, but you lose the pain.
Wow. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say is the most rewarding part of your job career?
Mm-hmm. The most rewarding part of my career is just seeing growth in people. I really, respect when people come into my office, or nowadays too on virtual therapy or telephone, when they take that step. There's a hell of a lot of courage in that.
Right.
And to be able to be open and vulnerable and, trust in me. So I'm very inspired by that. And I find it really rewarding when I see people, take that step and then in turn release some of that pain that they've been carrying for so long. So it's really nice to see just in that human connection how people can really shift and grow in their own experience and into their own. So I feel very thankful and grateful to be able to witness that.
I'm sure knowing that you've helped someone get through such an incredibly difficult time is got to feel amazing.
Mm-hmm. It really does. And I mean, I do not take credit for it. I often say to people, I'm just there to ask the questions and to provide suggestions. It's the other people, the individuals there that are doing the hard work.
Yeah. Now, I read that you're also a clinically certified hypnotherapist. Was this all part of your schooling when you were going through for psychology, or you decided that this would be a great addition in terms of learning certification to add on to your business? And if so, why did you decide to add this to your skill set?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was something that was not part of my formal education. So I did my certification in clinical hypnotherapy back in, I think it was 2014. And I laugh again. The reason that I became trained in it was because I thought, stereotypically, I was like, who would give their mind control over to somebody else? Like, why would people do this? So I had a lot of stereotypes and again, biases of what I thought hypnotherapy was. My experience to hypnotherapy here in Calgary, we have the Stampede, and it would be at the Stampede, and they do a stage show on hypnotherapy. So the individual would be clucking like a chicken and, doing the silly things. And I would think, like, who would do that? Why would you allow yourself to, be up on stage that way? And so when I went into my hypnotherapy training, the instructor said right away, have you ever experienced hypnotherapy? And I said, no. And I had a lot of fears associated to it. She's like, okay, let's do it. I'm going to hypnotize you. So I was so resistant and really tried to fight the process. But what I found in that as a valuable learning lesson, that even though I was so resistant, I have benefit from it. So hypnotherapy is something that anybody can experience, even if you were like myself in that moment and completely guarded. Anybody can benefit from it. So it is something that what initially drew me into it was my own fears and stereotypes, which I quickly learned were untrue. So you have complete control of your mind, and you're not going to do anything you don't want to, et cetera, et cetera. So I use it as a complement in my practice. Not too often do I use it as a standalone. Sometimes I'll get somebody that asks for like smoking cessation or some weight releasement, those types of issues, but I often will use it as a complement for, relaxation or affirmation building, esteem, things like that.
So then these stage shows like at the Stampede, because I've been to the Stampede and I've seen these things you're talking about. this clucking like a chicken and all this bullshit. So what is that all about then?
So the people that volunteer to be on stage, they're already a select population of, or select pool of people. So somebody like myself who's a little more reserved, guarded, there's no way I would be a volunteer for it.
Right.
So whenever somebody goes up on stage, the person, the hypnotherapist, will do a few suggestibility tests. So if anybody has the least bit resistance in that context, they'll get sent back to the audience. So the pool of people that are already up there are a very select pool of people that are highly suggestible. So they do work because the individuals that are volunteering are already in agreement to be silly and have that fun. And that's what hypnotherapy is. It's working with what you're in agreement with, what it has your subconscious and conscious mind working together.
So they are really making them cluck like a chicken, and like that's real.
Yeah, so that person will cluck like a chicken because they're in agreement to being silly. And that thing. But if they had them do something that they weren't in agreement with, the person wouldn't do that. Yeah.
That's so funny.
Right.
Oh my. Anyway, I read that you're also a huge advocate and do a lot of speaking on women's empowerment. What are your thoughts on the whole women's empowerment movement and body positivity and self-love? Can you speak a bit about what those things mean to you on a personal level?
Yeah, I think the women's empowerment, body positivity, I think it's great that there's a voice and a platform. I think, with any sort of movement, it is just providing a platform to have a voice and to, share your experience, be vulnerable, challenge stigma, any of those types of elements. For myself, I grew up in a household that was body shaming. So I have my own body insecurities, which I think is true of a lot of people, male and female for that matter. So for me, I really try and encourage, again, just self-acceptance and authenticity and letting go of judgment. So that compassion piece, I think within any self-empowerment and, it's always important to acknowledge the wound that's underneath as opposed to just sort of speak positive above it. And reason being, it's kind of like covering a wound on your hand with a Band-Aid that's infected. So it's not that the wound is gone, we just don't see it. So I always encourage to look at what's underneath. With the body positivity in general, my thoughts about that, I think it's great to have that self-acceptance and inclusivity of all people, body shape, sizes, etc. But I really encourage, and I think about this in my personal life, I'm a mom of 2 girls, is I don't reference comments about body, period. So I don't say, things like your body looks so nice in that or whatever, right? I don't want to reference it in a positive way or a negative way. I want to encourage references within my girls or, characteristics or attributes and strengths from, the inside, not just about what they look like on the outside, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, do you think that the media has played, what kind of a role do you think the media has played in all of this? I mean, do you think that these terms, women's empowerment and body positivity and self-love, do you think that in the times as of late, like the last couple of years, they become more buzzwords or cool words to use to like catchphrases type thing? Or do you, and kind of taken away from the actual true meaning behind all of it, or do you disagree with that?
I would say I can definitely see that because with any word and catchphrases, people start tossing it around, right? So I'm grateful that there is the platform and the opportunity to have conversations and even to see, in the media, different shapes and sizes as an example in the characters that are being represented. And, it's nice to see that diversity that's up there. So it's not just a cookie cutter approach of what I'm supposed to look like as an example. But with the buzzwords, the challenge that I find, and this is from my clinical experiences, similar to what I just mentioned, is that it's kind of like this, just, empower yourself, do this action, or, think positive, Google some affirmations and cite these affirmations to yourself and you'll feel better. And it's like, on some level, yes, there's a temporary sort of relief in that, if I can put it that way, but you're not necessarily addressing the main issue underneath. So at the core is we want to look at our self-esteem, our self-concept, what we really think about ourselves, and really look at fundamentally shifting that from the inside out as opposed to the outside in, because the outside in is more artificial and it's not sustainable. When we look at, shifting our concept from the inside out, we're not so altered by what's happening around us, because we feel quite stable within us.
Yeah, I guess that's the key, right? Is getting people to realize that you have to start within, do the self-work first, and then move outwards. Mm-hmm. But starting within is key.
Right, and that's where, through that experience, and I love hearing the vulnerability that's being shared by people. It's through that experience and that internal growth, can we then really, use that to share our stories as an example, to influence other people, to attract that in rather than promote, this is what you do. It's that attraction piece, which that's what's very powerful. So I love that, whether it's social media or media in general, does create a platform for people to share their story, to be real. I love when I see people being raw and real in what they're posting or sharing, because that's just it, right? It's not about the picturesque scene that you see in the post. It's the story behind it, which isn't always so rainbows and butterflies.
Yes, very true. Very true. What would you say is one of the most important things you've learned in your life? And what was your life like before learning it? And what was your life like after learning it?
What's one of them? I think one of the most important things to learn is that you're always learning, for that matter. And I know I put a lot of pressure on myself early on in my career about having to know the answers and having to have something to share or give to the client right in that moment. And I have found, over the 14, 15 years I've been doing this, is I'm not expected to know everything. Those are my own internal expectations, or at least they used to be. And I receive not only a lot of respect for myself, but from other people when I say, you know what, I'm really not sure about that, but let me get back to you. I'd much rather do that than give somebody misinformation. So I think part of that is just allowing, again, I think a lens of compassion. We're always learning and growing, and our experiences today shape us for tomorrow, just like our experiences last week shaped us for today. So we're always in that process of learning, and we can all learn from each other. So we're all on the same playing field that way.
Yeah, very true. What makes you feel inspired or like your best self?
What makes me feel inspired, I'll probably sound like a bit of a broken record that way, is vulnerability. So I love authenticity. And when I see authenticity and vulnerability, I feel like, again, I can show up in the same way. It's a safe relationship or friendship that's there. So that idea that you don't have to always have the mask on and the smile, like that's not real. You could say, you know what, today is kind of a crappy day, and be able to talk about that with somebody. So I find that being authentic, being real, being vulnerable is really inspiring and allows me to show up as my best self, because that's going to look different moment to moment or day by day.
Absolutely. I love it. What was a turning point in your life, and how did that affect you?
Turning point in my life, I would say a big turning point in my life was about 8 years ago. So as I mentioned, I have 2 kids. So at the time I was pregnant with my first and had always been working for other organizations. And I actually found myself let go without having a job to go back to. So it was terrifying. I was saying to my husband, then I was like, I have the most responsibility in my life. We have a child on the way, we have a mortgage, and I don't have a job. I've been working since, a young teenager, maybe even earlier with my paper route. but this is just bizarre. And I had a lot of fear. And I remember talking to him and talking to my mom, who are some major supports for me. And my mom was saying, don't worry, you always land on your feet. Things happen for a reason. And I was just like, there's no reason in this. And really, you know, feeling frustrated and fearful in that moment. And I had a job interview, and I was actually offered the job, and it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel like a good fit for my family. And I actually said no. So actually, sorry, back up. I was on mat leave when I got let go of this position. So so I was with my baby and on mat leave, and I turned this job down, and I was, you know, had the time crunch of I only have so much time of mat leave left, and I just didn't know what to do. And that's what actually propelled me into becoming self-employed. So I was so thankful for that experience, because it has really allowed me to show up as a mom first, but also maintain a career. So I'm so thankful that I can have that work-life balance. And of course it gets, you know, lopsided at times. But I have that ability to, you know, with awareness, pull back and see what works, what's not working, and shift my schedule as need be. So as terrifying as that experience was, it really, really taught me a lesson that in that moment, it felt like it was happening to me, but I can really recognize now that it was happening for me. So I was very thankful that, you know, it propelled me into that exploration of working for myself, and there's no turning back for me since.
It was a catalyst.
Yeah.
Sometimes what seems like the worst possible thing that could happen to you is the absolute best possible thing.
Exactly.
It's amazing. Exactly. Just amazing the way things work, you know, the way the universe works.
Yes.
What would you say is one of the best pieces of advice you've ever received?
One of the best pieces of advice I'd say is something my mom had said to me. I was, you know, I think I was probably crying, and I was upset about and fearful about not being a good parent, and, you know, a lot of these fears, and of course shame that pops up, and worrying and saying, you know, I'm concerned of not doing it right, or I'm screwing things up. And my mom had said something about you are a good parent because you care. Your feelings are a really, you know, strong indicator of how much you care. So I will always say in my practice, your feelings are valid. And so I think that it's really about embracing those feelings. And if you know, have a strong emotional response, that's okay. It just shows how much you care. So I really was thankful for that, and also recognizing that, yeah, there is no rule book on how to do things, and really just honoring your truth and all of that.
Awesome. What advice would you give someone wanting to pursue a career similar to yours?
I would give the advice of, you know, stay in the process, because it is a long pursuit. So for me, what I did at the time was I broke it up sort of mentally into chunks in my mind. So I had a lot of short-term goals, whether that meant semester by semester or, you know, supervisory hours, etc., as opposed to looking at it as a end all be all. So really have small goals along the way, but also to be open to learning, not just about theory, but learning about yourself. So, you know, when I am working with people, I often will say I get zapped all the time, meaning I get triggered, and it's just information about my own stuff that comes up. And it's always so important to be able to, you know, learn about yourself, reflect and grow, so that you're not projecting or, you know, putting anything onto your clients. So anybody that's starting the process or engaged in the process is just, again, compassion, be open. You don't have to know everything, that sort of thing. Just be gentle with themselves.
Okay. Who would you say have been the three most influential people in your life?
The three most influential people in my life, my mom for sure, my husband, and my kids. So I think the three of them stand out alone, or well, there's 4, I have 2 kids, but
we'll count them as one.
The 3 categories of people. My mom specifically, my parents divorced when I was 16. Okay. It was a pretty toxic divorce, and my mom went back to school. She worked her tail off. She worked, 6 jobs, I think it was 6 or 7. It was crazy, to help me in university and just with her household bills and things like that. So I really admire her independence, her courage to go back to school, her drive, her commitment. So she really instilled those things in me, and I feel that I am a very independent person, but I don't mean that in the sense of being isolated, like I can do it myself, but I can really embrace that, yeah, I can figure things out on my own, and I'm really thankful to have that confidence by just witnessing her and her own journey. So I'm very thankful for her. She's a big support for my husband and my kids and myself and our family life. So there's a lot of gratitude I have for her. My husband is a person I'm so thankful for as well, because he's always supported me, never questioned, like even going into self-employment, it was never like, is that a good idea? It was always, he's always standing behind me, supporting me, and yep, you can do it, and that sort of thing. So I've never felt like he's put any sort of doubt or fear in my mind that way. He's always encouraged me in the, just moving forward and all of that. And of course, my girls, I think they're very inspiring and influential on me. I mean, my oldest is what got me into this career, as far as the self-employed career. But I really appreciate, especially right now with all this COVID stuff happening, is the resiliency and the positivity that I see in my kids. And I find that those are, my spiritual moments when I hear something come out of their mouths and I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. Like, time to just step back and reframe and things like that. Like my oldest was saying the other day, she goes, Mommy, I don't really like wearing masks, but at least they keep my face warm in winter. You know what? That's really great, as opposed to complaining about it. She's seeing some of the positive in it. And even the back to school stuff this year, there's not been one complaint about any of the changes. She's just so happy to be there and to show up. And, while the parents are complaining in the field about, oh, we're going to have to line up in a field. What's going to happen when there's snow on the ground? Like, well, we line up in the snow, like no big deal. But the kids, I just love their simplicity. And I find that I learn so much just from them and their own courage and bravery and going with the flow of, their own resiliency.
Yeah, kids are a lot smarter and tune into them a lot more than we actually give them credit for.
Yes.
For sure.
Totally.
What is the one common myth about your profession that you want to debunk?
I'd say one of the common stereotypes is that I'm a psychologist 24 hours a day. So, it's like this idea that when I leave the office, I'm going home and I'm going to make this word, but therapizing my family and my friends and analyzing people and that sort of thing. And no, I'm not here to analyze people. I'm here to, be with people and their experiences and to support them along the way. So it's, I think there's a ton of stereotypes, like when people that just meet me and they ask me what I do and I share, then they're concerned about if they say something the wrong way, if they're going to be analyzed. And no, that's not how it works.
Yeah, very true. Very true. What is your personal motto?
My personal motto, your feelings are valid. So I'm a big advocate in feelings, and that's kind of a broken record statement that I say. I actually have it on my coffee cup in front of me. Your feelings are valid, and they aren't right or wrong. They're not good or bad. They just give you information. But what will happen is we create a story sometimes to try and justify why we're feeling a certain way. And I'll just give you an example because I think it's important for anybody to tune into it is, we can have emotional imprinting happen throughout our day just with any interaction we have or experience. And if we're not connected to those emotions on a feelings-based level, they, build up. and then they come out on some level. And if we're not aware of how we're feeling, we then start to create the story as to why I feel a certain way. So, when COVID first started happening, back in the spring, I remember after a week, I was saying, I'm feeling anxious and I don't know why I'm feeling anxious. So I got into the analysis. I said, well, maybe it's because of the news. And then I turned on the news and I'm like, what am I doing? And then I said, well, maybe it's because of this. And the reality is I just had feelings that built up. And when I caught myself in that, it was just, okay, I have these feelings. I'm going to acknowledge them and release them, as opposed to try and figure them all out. So in our house, we always talk about, your feelings are just your truth and they're your perspective and they're completely valid. So that is a big personal motto, not only in my work life, but my personal life as well.
What do you think is the most common reason for people failing or giving up?
Fear and shame. Fear and shame, most definitely. So it's that fear of not succeeding, which is shame-based, right? I don't want to, will I be good enough? What if I fail? What will people think? And all of that storytelling is the fear and shame emotional response. So I find that self-talk will put us in a corner where we don't try something just simply based on what we think about it. So as an example, 2 simple words, I can't versus I can. So if I can't on yourself, you're not going to. But if you say I can, or at least I can try, you open up your world to a whole realm of possibilities.
Kaylie, what is one of your favorite quotes?
One of my favorite quotes, and I'm not sure where it came from, but one of my favorite quotes is, your feelings need to come before you can let them go. So oftentimes we try to stuff our feelings, compartmentalize them, tuck them away. But one of my most favorite quotes expresses that you actually need to feel them in order to let them go. And I find that it's like the idea of like pain. We need to sort of feel and experience that pain to move through it. We just can't shove it aside. That's where it becomes, unnecessary suffering. So I really, really love that quote. Your feelings need to come before you can let them go.
What does the word empowerment mean to you?
Empowerment means to me embracing your vulnerabilities and taking action.
Okay.
And I love that because, when we are empowered, we embrace our vulnerabilities and our strengths for that matter. And we can take action and show up in our lives as we want to. So it's not necessarily that taking action means you're doing something, but just taking action and being present with yourself.
How would you describe yourself in one word?
Compassionate.
What do you feel most grateful for in your life?
I feel most grateful for in my life is my family. So I'm very thankful for my family and, like I said, the gifts and sort of messages, opportunities that I see within them and experience with them as well.
If you were writing your autobiography, what would the title be?
If I was writing my autobiography, my title would be Authenticity. Yeah.
Okay. What gives you the motivation to keep going?
The motivation to keep going, I think I get from, again, my clients, my family, just the people that I surround myself with. As I mentioned earlier, I'm very inspired by my clients who come in and, it takes a hell of a lot of courage to show up and be real and to trust and be open. And it motivates me on those days where, I struggle. And, I often will say to myself in those moments, what would I say to a client in this position? And it helps me kind of get outside of myself a little bit, but then to show up for myself as I need to, versus being stuck in my own sort of high expectations of self, as just to humanize myself a little bit and to really have that compassion for myself. So yeah, I think people in general motivate me for sure to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, we have to put ourselves first. Everything starts with self. That's the whole foundation for all of it. So You got to put yourself first for sure.
Most definitely. And I think in my practice and the work that I do, I share a lot of examples and I share bits of myself. I often say it's only fair as I learn about other people. I think it's important they know a little bit about me, and I don't share in that context of processing my own stuff in therapy, but more so in just sharing that human compassion and that we can all relate. And I don't mean that in a way of taking away from somebody's experience, but just that we can relate on a feelings-based level. And that's where empathy is really powerful.
Well, I think if you share a bit about your story and what you're going through or whatever the case may be, it also gives your clients, I would think, permission to feel a little more relaxed to share theirs as well.
Definitely.
What's the most recent investment you've made in yourself?
The most recent investment, I'm just thinking where my mind goes in this question is training aspects. So I as I mentioned, I did that basic art certification back in early summer, and I've just actually as of the weekend, maybe it was Friday, registered for some neurofeedback training. So I'm interested in learning about biofeedback in the brain and how we can work with the brain to, help alleviate some of these symptoms of anxiety and depression and whatnot as well. So I'm really excited to learn more about, the brain science aspect and to be able to offer that down the road as well. It's quite a process, but I'm going to get ready to start it.
What is your favorite stress-reducing activity?
A big stress-reducing activity, it used to be soccer, and I say used to because, of course, it's shut down right now. So I've played since I was about 6-7 years old, and it's something that I only took time off of through my pregnancy. So not playing soccer right now has been a big adjustment. But I was coaching my oldest daughter is coaching her soccer, and I get a lot of value in that. Right now it's moved to Zoom sessions over for soccer, which is a little bit interesting. So I've found that is shifting as well. But I would say for a stress reducing activity is just, playing with my kids and the simplicity of, doing a puzzle, or we went ice skating on the weekend in the mountains, and it's just that idea of being, with my kids and my husband too, and just, having fun, with kids. I'm just thinking of some of the experiences they've afforded me in the, last few years of going down some of the slides or the water slides and, some of these things I wouldn't do as an adult, but I sure enjoy being able to do it with them.
Yeah, fun is definitely a good stress reducer. Yeah. Soccer over Zoom. What the hell?
Yes. Yeah, they've done the club my daughter is involved with, they have some technical training sessions that were obviously taking place in person, but now as sport got shut down, they're doing some of these technical sessions online. And it's been, I mean, it's not the same, of course, but it's nice to have some exposure to it. And my youngest was in dance, so her dance class went to online as well. So it's just a time of different and trying to embrace the changes and be thankful for, I guess, the option to opt into it.
Adapt, right? If you don't adapt, you're going to get left behind. If you could teach the world one thing, what would that be?
If I could teach the world one thing, be kind. So I find that so necessary right now. There's a lot of judgment and blaming and shaming and all of that. And it's very easy to, compare what I often will say, compare what I'm feeling on the inside to somebody else's outside or vice versa. And the reality is we all have our own stuff. So can we just be kind and let go of assumptions and just show up for each other and listen?
Yeah, this whole thing baffles me every time I think about it, and it's come up quite a few times in the last month, I would say. I cannot wrap my head around why we as a human race have such a hard time figuring out and adapting this concept to our lives. It's not hard to be kind to people. It doesn't cost you anything. It's very, very simple. I really can't understand it.
Mm-hmm. I think some of it is, I mentioned the word shame earlier. So shame is that feeling of not being good enough, whereas pride is the same feeling, but opposite end of the spectrum. It's that ego piece. I am good enough, or I'm better than. So I think sometimes that kindness or lack of kindness gets sort of missed because ego is high, which is shame is high. So people are on this idea that, you know, they need to prove themselves as better than, and, you know, step on other people along the way. And I think it's just a really, you know, a lack of awareness, because an individual doesn't have capacity to see it when they're operating from that level.
What is the one thing you want but cannot buy with money?
Health in our world. Yeah, now more than ever. So I think, and when I say health, I mean that goes right across the board, you know, mental health, physical health. You know, this pandemic aspect has brought on some opportunities for sure for people. It's not just all bad. I mean, I do hear like we can get caught up in all the things that are taken away or things we can't do, but really looking at some of the opportunities that it has created and just sort of resetting and refocusing our mindset. So I'm really trying to focus on positive, and I don't mean that from an ignorant standpoint to be oblivious to some of the challenges, but really to dive into, you know, health on a general level. And I mentioned holistic care earlier, and that means your physical health, psychological, emotional, social, and spiritual.
If you came with a warning label, what would yours say?
If I came with a warning label, it'd say, warning, I'm a real person. So I will share how I feel. And, you know, I do get emotional. Like my girls will always say, are you going to cry, mommy? And I say, yeah, maybe. And just to embrace things as they come. So my warning label would say that I'm a real person. I do have my feelings that I'll show.
If you had a theme song that played every time you walked into a room, what song would that be?
I was thinking about this, and I was thinking on some level, the song Fight Song. My daughter in her school, they had Fight Song was a song that they would sing, and they had all these actions to it. And I really like, you know, it's a song about discovering your voice, really. And she sings about taking back her life and all of that. So I just view it from this sense of really embracing me and having a voice and using that and making my impact for what I can do.
Okay, good. I love it. If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
Not to beat myself up for not knowing then what I know now. And I find that I remind myself that if it weren't for those experiences then, it wouldn't have brought me to where I am now. So all of those lessons have had that opportunity to teach me and give me the knowledge as to where I am at today.
Our experiences shape who we are. They're all part of the journey.
Yes, exactly.
Lastly, if you were to deliver your last 30-second speech to the world, what would that last 30 seconds sound like?
The last 30 seconds of a speech to the world is, you know, really be yourself. And, you know, what that means is to be curious and discover kind of the who am I questions. And that isn't a question that we, you know, definitively answer. We are always growing and changing and evolving in our experiences. So be authentic, be curious. And by being curious, it means staying in the process and letting go of outcomes and allowing yourself that opportunity to be present and show up for yourself and just enjoy. And I'd say have fun, like a lot of self-care and all of that. We forget about the F word of fun in there. So part of that process is really exploring what do you do for fun and what do you enjoy. So I think, again, that idea of just learning more about who am I, which is investing into that on a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, I think so often we forget about ourselves and we forget about that F word fun, and because we get so wrapped up in our lives and what needs to be done and get caught up in all this shit that we forget about. I mean, we're only here for a short time, so why not have fun while you're here too? Yeah. I mean, I think we take life a little too seriously, some people. So we've got to learn to relax a bit and have fun with it.
Right. And I think that that's just it. And there's that expression about like you're known by kind of like not what you say, but how you like make others feel. And I think it's true of for yourself is really just to embrace like, how do I feel? And again, what do I enjoy? And what gives me value? What gives me meaning? And that's how you really explore the who am I question. But we're always constantly evolving and growing. So I'm just grateful for those moments of truly being present and connected. And, when I get caught up in the busyness of life, it's just a reminder of, okay, how do I slow down and pause and reconnect? So it's staying in that flow. And we need other people to recognize it because we don't always recognize it within ourselves.
Very true. Very true. Thank you, Kaylie, so much for taking the time to be here and share a bit about your story and your journey and your insights. It's been an absolutely amazing experience having you on the show and inspiring speaking with you and hearing your take on certain things in life. So I appreciate you taking the time to be here and share your story and just be part of the Empowerography community. It's been an absolutely amazing experience chatting with you.
Well, thank you for your time, and I'm grateful to be part of this community because I love what it stands for and the platform that you're providing women with. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. Those are very kind words. Once again, my name is Brad Walsh, host of your Empowerography Podcast. My guest today has been Kaylie Rodriguez. She is a registered psychologist and owner of YYC Psychology based in Calgary, Alberta. Thank you so much, Kaylie. I hope you have an amazing rest of the day.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you very much for listening to this podcast. If you haven't yet, please be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share with all your friends. You can find me at visuphoria.ca and follow me on Instagram at Empowerography Podcast and on Facebook at Empowerography. Please join me next time for another inspirational story from yet another amazing woman.